Hello, salespersons of all makes, models, and brands. My name is Chance, and thank you so much for tuning into another prospecting episode over here at the Sales Bible. Today we're going to be taking a look at a pretty interesting one that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but one that is just as valid as any other method of prospecting you could come up with. Today, we're going to be taking a look at tossing cards. Now, once again, this one can be done for no monetary value, but if you really want to get the best results, you're going to want to drop some coin on it. You should probably cap out at around $100. At least at first. That being said, if you find spending a little bit more gets you better results through the long term, I'd probably push you more towards that route. But ultimately, you won't really know until you try it out for yourself. In terms of overall time commitment, the setup is going to be about half an hour, and that'll actually be you arriving at the venue, that'll be you setting up, that'll be you getting comfortable. And then the daily commitment is going to be between 1 to 2 hours. I think that's pretty fair. Once again, do this as you see fit, but we'll get into what it is exactly right away here. So, card tossing is essentially walking up to people and handing them your card, saying, "Hey, I'd like to do business with you or someone you know. Can you help me out?" That's in essence what it is. It's one of the oldest forms of prospecting out there. Really, as soon as business cards became a thing, this has been around. A lot of people still do this at networking events. Is probably the most common place to go card tossing, but we'll get into how to do it in the automotive sales game here. Before we do that, let's get into some quick advantages and disadvantages. On the advantage side, it gives you access to a unique market. Fact of the matter is not a lot of salespeople are going to be doing this, and because of that, you gain an advantage that way, but you can also select where you're going. And because of that, you can actually tweak the kind of clientele you're gunning for, which is very interesting. Another advantage, managers will love seeing the work ethic. This is something that I've just noticed. Typically, the more effort you put in and the more people notice it, the better you're going to do in terms of moving up the corporate ladder in the car business. So this is a nice, cheap way of doing that that's still likely to generate a lot of positive talk in your name. It'll also allow you to introduce yourself to essentially limitless people. There's no real cap on how many people you can get in front of, and there's no real downside to doing this per se. It also develops your people skills, which is really nice. You're going up to strangers, you're disarming them, making them feel comfortable, stuff like that. And it gets people working for you. And this was one of the disadvantages on cold calling, is it's kind of immediate gratification. This is kind of the reverse. Where cold calling is kind of like shouting out into the void and hoping someone responds back to you, this is more akin to convincing a person to yell into the void for you. Benefit of that is you can convince multiple people to do this, and it kind of stacks. Like, it's a very scalable way of going about things. Now let's get into some disadvantages. The biggest one, and the biggest reason why you're not going to do this, is it feels a little awkward at first. It is something you get more used to as time progresses, but I'd be a fool not to at least address this. It takes away from your time at the sales floor as well, so if you're going to want to do this, do it on your off shift. It forces you to bleed your work life into your daily life. And this is something a lot of people coming from traditional jobs are going to have a hard time with. The car sales industry, if you talk to anyone who's been really successful in this industry, they'll have a very hard time drawing the distinction between when their job starts and ends. They're pretty much on call at the time. They kind of sacrifice the work-life balance in a traditional sense of having a workspace and then a home space, but that isn't to say that they're not functioning highly in the world. That isn't to say they're not great family men or women. That isn't to say any of that. You just kind of have to throw your conventional way of thinking out the window in a lot of regards. And the last obvious disadvantage that I can seem to think of is it has a low short-term conversion rate. What this means is out of the gate, you're not going to get a lot of people from this. It's kind of something that pays you dividends over the long run, but just trust me, if you keep it up, you will get the results you're after, no problems. Now let's get into how to actually do it. Now this is one of those things quickly worth noting. Everyone's approach is going to be a little bit different for this. I personally just like being as efficient as possible. Doesn't mean that there's some harder customers I don't get to. Yes, it does. I'm fully aware of that. But I focus just on getting in front of as many people as possible, and this method is aimed at that. So essentially, you'll walk up to a group with a smile and a wave. You say something to the effect of, "Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. My name's Chance and I recently started as a sales advisor at XYZ dealership. I was just curious if any of you knew anyone who was in the need of a newer, nicer vehicle." And then every once in a while, someone will be like, actually, I do know someone, or, actually, I'm in the market myself. To which you say, "Great, thank you so much for your time. Do you have their name and number handy?" And they're usually like, "Sure, just let me shoot them a text so that they know you're going to be calling them." I'm like, "Great, fantastic, thank you so much." That's usually the easiest way of doing it. Depending on what your dealership has set up, there might be other word tricks that they want you to use, but that's always going to be the gist of it. You're asking people to help you out, basically. Now, let's get into some tips real quick here. Tip number 1 is a fairly obvious one, but it's just worth beating into you guys because it really does help you out. Have just a positive, cheerful, and helpful demeanor. People pick up on it really well. They really respond well to it, so just keep that up. Also, dress professionally. This is going to be one of those things where people are going to be wary, not just because you're a salesman, but also because you could be trying to scam them out of personal information. So be presentable, look good, and just be confident in the way you express yourself, a very open body language, stuff like that. And the third tip is to have some way of identifying yourself. I like personally just the drop-down business card or a card of some nature just on your neck or whatever. Just say your name, your dealership, contact information, stuff like that, just to end on an air of credibility to who you are. Now let's actually look at changing the approach and just really help boost that conversion ratio. So the best way I've found of getting the best results is through small pieces of swag. I've had a lot of success with lanyards in the past. Those have been my go-to. You can get them for like less than 50 cents each if you order them in bulk, so I'd highly recommend doing that. Ultimately, you can try and negotiate the dealership reimburse you for that should you get a car sale out of it. That's what I've done at all my dealerships, and I've had very large degrees of success with it. I've never had a GM say no. Secondly, I'd recommend you bring a clipboard with you just to jot down people's information. Make sure it's a nice one, once again, credibility, and just use it often. Refer to it often. Don't have your phone on you as well. Just have the clipboard. You should be fine. And then the third way you can change up your approach is by using dealership referral incentives. Lots of dealerships are using paid referral programs now, which I think is kind of stupid, but personal thoughts aside, it can be a great motivator for a lot of people. For example, hey, and if you help me out, benefit to you is you get an extra $200, $500, whatever it is at your dealership. And that's kind of just a good way to incentivize them on their end, right? So that's going to be about it for this video. If you have any word tricks, tips, or approaches in your repertoire, please put them down beneath in the comment section. I'm honestly just really curious to see how you guys go about this one. Personally, I think it's a great method of prospecting, but tell me your stories down below. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to hearing them. That being said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy selling, everyone.